your career is really woven between law, tech, and community influence, and we want to kind of uncover those, especially as a Miami operator.
If what you're doing is trying to do something to make money, you're not going to succeed. I don't do things just because I'm going to make money. I do them because I like what I do.
Joining us today is John Ruiz, Miami-based entrepreneur, trial attorney, and founder and CEO of MSP Recovery, a company redefining healthcare data and litigation through technology. With more than 3 decades of experience building at scale, John is now expanding into new frontiers with ventures like LuminSea, focused on marine safety, smart navigation, and the future of ocean infrastructure. Today, we explore the mindset, decisions, and vision behind navigating risk, growth, and leadership at the highest level.
You want to try to go through life and leave some sort of legacy in terms of making the world better.
Get ready for a powerful conversation on building bold ideas, navigating Miami's rapid evolution, and the mindset behind creating impact at scale. This is Better Decisions.
Welcome back to another episode of the Better Decisions podcast. Today, as a guest, I have John Ruiz on the Better Decisions podcast, one of Miami's most dynamic and controversial business leaders. I'm going to kind of read a little bit of my notes here. You're a Coral Gables-based attorney turned entrepreneur, and you built and took a public healthcare litigation and technology company, originally known as MSP, or known as MSP Recovery, forward. Your career is really woven between law, tech, and community influence. There's obviously a lot of stuff out there on the press. You are listed in the Forbes list as a billionaire worth 1.5 billion, and again, that's not for flattery reasons. That's because success, your journey of success, has come as a result of some behaviors, some beliefs, some systems, and we want to kind of uncover those, especially as a Miami operator. This entire podcast series now is about the people who are really operating within Miami, moving the city forward, shaping it, coming up with new, bold ideas, and speaking for those who watch, who may be like-minded, high-asset professionals. Whether you're a century millionaire or a billionaire looking to make a move into Miami, I think this can be a really good lesson for those who are looking to make South Florida their home. So let's get into it. John, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for inviting me, first of all.
It's a pleasure. So it's an absolute pleasure. And I know there's going to be some obvious questions that people will ask, but I want to start off with going through the past, the present, and the future. So let's start off with your origins. Tell me about where it all started for you, like how you started the business and how you came to be where you are today.
So I was born in Miami. My parents are Cuban. I was actually born in Miami Beach in Mount Sinai Hospital. I was conceived in Spain, but then my mother traveled over here. And according to what she told me, she had to lie about how many months she was pregnant because they wouldn't let her fly at the time, right? She was in her 3rd trimester. So then I was born here. And then I have 2 other sisters that were born in Cuba. My parents migrated from Cuba, obviously. They married in Cuba. My dad at age 12 was homeless. He lost both his parents. So pretty much, I give credit a lot to my dad. It's just been remarkable what I've learned from him. And obviously I've capitalized on that because I had a lot more opportunity than my dad had. And then obviously that's what I've done with my kids. They've had more opportunity than what I had as well. Yeah. Interesting that you said Coral Gables attorney because I was born in Miami. I am in Coral Gables now, but I was born in Miami Beach, like I told you, but I lived my entire life for the first 25 years in the city of Miami until I was able to buy my first house in Coral Gables. And truth be told, I started straight out of law school because I tried to get a job at the state attorney's office and they had a hiring freeze. There's no budget for the county to hire lawyers. So I had to go out on my own and I didn't have a cent to pay for rent or nothing.
You were humble beginnings. I mean, again, you started from zero. And when you see someone who builds an empire, builds a business, self-made. So a self-made billionaire is very different to one who, gets a trust fund or anything like that. How does that start? I mean, to begin your business in Miami, you start off as an attorney. How do you then shift? How does it move? And how does MSP come about?
So great question. But I think what happens is, and I've told people this all along, if what you're doing is trying to do something to make money, you're not going to succeed. If all you're doing is doing something that, hey, I just want to make money, because there's no energy behind that, right? So I don't do things just because I'm going to make money. Do I think I can make money? Absolutely. But I do them because of passion. I do them because I like what I do. I'm a guy that rolls back, his sleeves. Like, for example, in the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show this last November, my staff wrote me the day after, hey, we can't believe that you were at the boat show every day, working with us. I go, that's the only way I know how to do it. And I think that's important, that your staff and your people know that you are the same as they are. People talk about Forbes and billions and whatever. At the end of the day, does it really matter? I mean, I know people want to make money and people want to have this sort of status symbol, but I don't see life like that. And I think that that's, in my view, at least has helped me out, because I see people as people and human beings. I much rather speak to my gardener and my captain early in the morning and have coffee with him than sit down and speak to some billionaire that doesn't have and share the same ideas that I have as far as humanity is concerned. So to me, that's very important. And I think at least it's helped me. Not that what I say is the formula, but it's worked for me.
Was that always the case? I mean, when you were young and you were starting, and when did you start? When MSP Recovery as a company, when did that start? And why did you start it?
Okay. So good question. Let me take you back, because I think there's a history behind it, right? So I don't have any money to pay rent. So I end up going to a building where there's a lawyer, and that lawyer says, come in. You give me hours of work instead of rent. I didn't have money to pay for a phone system. I didn't have money to pay rent. I had money for anything. I was basically starting from scratch. So I was giving him 20 hours of work a month in exchange for what would otherwise be the rent, which was $700, right? And then the phone system would come with it. I had no secretary, I had nobody. After I did that for like 2 months, he realized that I was a hard worker. I've always been a hard worker. I sleep 3.5, 4 hours at most, and I don't think anybody can outwork me. There's only one person that I know of that works as much as I do, and that's the coach of the University of Miami football team, which is Mario Cristobal. I've not seen anybody that has that stamina that I have. And people don't understand why. How is it that you can sleep 3.5, 4 hours? That's just the way I am. That's how I'm built that way, right? And I can function with no problem. So taking you back, I start doing what I call door law. You probably never heard of door law.
No.
It's you take anything that walks in through the door.
Okay.
That's what door law is. I did from landlord-tenant to wills and trusts to DUIs. I did everything. It was $200, $300, $500. I just needed to bring in any money that I could, right? And after probably about 6 months doing that, I started to focus on accident cases, meaning slip and falls and car accidents. And I realized that insurance companies did the same thing over and over again. And I remember that when I went to law school, there was a rule called the class action rule. So I looked it up and I said, well, this is repetitive conduct. Yeah. And I filed my first class action. I was in my 20s. Remember, I graduated from law school. I was only 22. And I filed it, and they hired like 4 different law firms that filed notices of appearance. And I remember one lady, experienced lawyer, called me and said, yeah, you're a young lawyer. We take this seriously. We're going to look at this. We're going to go after you. And all I said was, listen, I must have pressed the right button. I am young, but I know I pressed the right button. You guys weren't hired for law firms, right? So fast forward, the case settled for millions and millions, and then I had the same issue in about 80-something cases, and I was able to certify a bunch of cases, and that's really when I started to make a considerable amount of money. And then I started to get into pharmaceutical litigation and products like, pedicle screw or some of those products that are for medical purposes. So I started to get into that, into these massive cases. I remember my first big case that I tried to get other lawyers to join in was Fen-Phen. And you may be too young to remember that. It was a combination, a cocktail drug between phentermine and fenfluramine. Right. It was basically doctors were prescribing these 2 medications for people to lose weight. And I had a group of 12 lawyers and doctors, very experienced, and I was super excited. I had put everything together, and they sat in this long conference table, and the doctor that was all the way at the end of the table that was a Cuban doctor, so he spoke the way I'm going to talk to you now. He looked at me and he said, "Mr. Ruiz, je don't have a case." And I was like, it was like, bucket of cold water over me. They left, and I remember my secretary at the time was about my mom's same age. And I said, "Hey, how much does it cost to file the lawsuit?" And she goes, $211. And I said, "We're filing it." So I filed it, and I was the first in Florida and the third in the United States of America. And that case ended up settling for $3.65 billion. Obviously, didn't make all that money. I just had clients within it, but I made tens of millions of dollars. And from that point forward, I said, I'm never listening to anybody else. I'm going to go with what I think is going to work, and I'm going to make it happen in that fashion. And to me, that's been my formula, which is I hear what everybody says, but at the end of the day, I go with my gut. Something super interesting this morning, because, you have a bunch of people that work with you, and they tell you things, whatever. And one of the lawyers that have been with me for the longest amount of time called me in the morning and said, "Hey, remember that you always start first, and then people catch up. So don't lose that train of thought. I know you're older now, right? Because I did this stuff in my 20s. I'm in my 50s now. Don't lose that drive, because that's what made you, be the first at everything." And she was talking about this LuminSea product that I have, which is illuminated channel markers. So sometimes people want to wait till everything's perfect. And there's no such thing as perfection.
Yes,
you gotta throw the first punch.
Does this sound familiar, guys? It's funny enough. My team is around me, and I share the same psychology, because I've always believed, and I've always been in that mindset, that it doesn't have to be perfect. Nope. It doesn't have to be ideal. Just get it going. And people would say in my industry, I would hear something on a Friday, I would initiate it by Monday, and everyone else was trying to kind of like work the machinery. And I'm like, it doesn't. At the beginning, it's difficult. In the middle, it's messy, and at the end, it's glorious.
Yes.
But it's okay to go through that messy phase.
It's part of everything. It's like, it's like a child.
Yeah.
You ride a bicycle, you're going to fall down a bunch of times. You can't have this world of perfection where I'm going to get on the bicycle and I'm never going to fall.
Yeah.
Right. I remember when I was like 19 years of age, I used to work out. See that you work out too, and I was
little bit.
I was strong. Bit. I was strong as a mule. I mean, I was ripped, and I had 19-inch arms, and I would go out without a shirt, and it was cold. And my mom would tell me, "You're gonna catch a cold." I said, "Mom, you think this body can catch a cold?" And she would go, "You're gonna catch a cold." And I would catch a cold, and who would take care of me? Mom. So the message is, you're gonna make mistakes. I don't think there's anybody that has done anything in life where you don't fail. If you don't fail, it means you never tried. Yeah. And, I remember baseball, because my kids played baseball. And I remember
you've got a big link into sports, and I want to get into that. In fact, maybe we just jump into it. There's something about and I have a background in sports, so I used to be the director of marketing at IMG. I used to run their marketing department. That's a great school. And I had before that.
That's over in the West Coast, right?
Yeah. Well, IMG as a company is all over the world. They're a big sports agency, and before that, I played pro rugby. So I have a very physical background, and again, there's a certain kind of...
We'll tackle each other when we finish the program.
There's a certain amount of combative nature that you naturally are drawn to. It's a challenge, and it's very exposing and very raw. I didn't say sport doesn't build character, it exposes it.
I also think that athletes, though, because I've had a lot of athletes and I've hired a lot of athletes, and all three of my kids have been athletes or a little older now. My oldest boy was an amazing athlete, like just at any sport. He was just an incredible athlete. My younger boy was an athlete also and very good, but just my oldest boy was just off the charts. One of the things that you learn from athletes is the discipline. Yeah. That discipline. Hey, you got to wake up at 4:30 in the morning. You got to be running at 5. You got to eat. You got to, take care of yourself. I think is huge, because it works in the work environment. So I think that's very important. You were talking about sports. I'm going to bring you back to sports, but I want to transition to go back just for a minute about all these cases, because I think it's important.
And I want to make sure we cover on the new business as well, because this is very key. This is your creative mindset. You're like constantly as a human being that's motivated, and money is no longer your motivating factor. Very clearly, that transitioned out a long time ago, and maybe was never really there to begin with. But with your motivations, why you're doing what you're doing right now, and why it's so important to you.
So again, I think that one of the things that also happens, at least in my mind, is you want to try to go through life and leave some sort of a legacy in terms of making the world better. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people say, I want to make the world better. But I really believe in making the world better, and mostly in the side of safety. So I've been exposed because I've been a practicing attorney with injury cases. I've seen horrific situations. If you remember the buildings that went down, the Champlain Towers.
I covered that so interestingly enough, you mentioned that. There was an article that came out with The Real Deal covered by Catherine Caligas.
Okay.
Catherine's been on my podcast several times. Very unusual for a real estate broker to so openly interview somebody in the kind of real estate journalism space, especially in areas that are considered more controversial. But we had her in, we talked about that, we talked about the sinking buildings, we covered all those subjects because it's okay to have that dialogue. So I'm very familiar with that and the obviously the fallout, the social fallout that came as a result after that.
So I was one of the lawyers, the main lawyers on the case, right? So that was probably one of the saddest cases I've ever been involved in.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of airplane accident cases, motorcycle accidents, truck accidents. I mean, I've seen it all. Doing that consistently and doing it in larger volumes. I was involved in the Ford Firestone rollover cases. I've been involved in BP oil spill, Peter Pan, peanut butter, all the cases that you talk about, Vioxx, Baycall. I've been involved in all those major cases. And the one thing that you see consistently is that, unfortunately, and probably in the world, but much more in the United States, we are numbers. Yeah. The health and both mental health and physical health of people are sometimes pushed aside for numbers. We've seen that in the opioid cases where there are detailed emails with the internal people saying keep feeding them like if they were Doritos and laughing about it. And it causing all these, issues with deaths and destroying families. So the one thing that I tell people is, look, you know your body the best, better than even a doctor in terms of the way you feel. If you take something and it's not making you feel right, it doesn't matter if the doctor tells you that you're supposed to feel right, because if you don't, you just don't, right? So everybody reacts to things differently. And what I learned also is that every medication taken by the same exact medication taken by different people will have a complete different reaction. I had Vioxx cases. People took it 1 or 2 days and they had either a stroke or a heart attack. And I've had people take it for years and nothing happened to them.
Yeah, so it's interesting. One of my clients has a tenurage at Harvard. He's a professor of chemistry. He just sold his biotech company for a very large sum. But he told me something interesting. He said, as much as we think we understand, we still don't even fully understand one cell in the human body. Yeah. Our ability to really break it down, and we make it seem like it's very simple. There's mitochondria, there's nucleus, but it's far more complex than that.
So going back to the reason why I brought that up in terms of the danger and where I believe is like my place, at least it's on the safety side. So I'm a very safety conscious person. I drive speedboats at a high speed.
I know. I find that kind of somewhat ironic.
Yeah. So but the thing is, I'll drive a boat at 120 miles an hour if I feel that I'm in control of it, and I'll make sure that all the occupants are wearing their safety gear and so on and so forth. And believe it or not, some of these boats going at 120 miles an hour, you're driving them properly, are probably safer than the ones that go 60 or 70 miles an hour. They're built for that, right? It's no different than going on a plane at 500 miles an hour versus going in a car at 200 miles an hour. The plane's going to be safer. They're built to go that fast. Not every car is built to go at 200 miles an hour, and there's less room for error. Yeah. We saw the guy from, I think, Call of Duty that just lost his life in what I believe to be a silly car accident. So the products that I try to put out, which LuminSea is illuminated channel markers, people get killed or seriously injured when they either crash into channel markers at night or they go on the wrong side of the channel marker. They run into a sandbank and they kill themselves.
Many sad cases in the last few years of people passing, even teenagers after, I think, President's Day weekend, there was some awful situations, and we know the families directly involved in some of those cases.
So here's what happens. When you're navigating on a boat, it's 3-dimensional. Yeah. You need to know the depth because you need the water in order to be able to propel the boat. And do you need 3 feet? Do you need 3.5 feet? And you look at these charts, the GPS charts, they're not accurate. So if you go on, and depending obviously if it's mean low tide or what time of the day, if there's a full moon or no full moon, there's a lot of factors involved in that.
Yeah.
So I know that there's a huge void, because when you think of air travel and you think of car travel, we have a lot of technology behind that. On the traffic control signs, whether it's a stop sign or a yield sign or a traffic sign or a sign just to get off on the highway, the ocean is 70, 80 years behind on technology. The boats have technology, but not how you navigate through the waters.
Right.
And LuminSea, because they're illuminated channel markers, and if you remember the picture from the Marlins that died, Jose Fernandez ran into the jetty. So there's, at night, you can't see a thing at night on a boat. If the moon is out, you can see a little bit, but you can't see anything. So this system of illuminated channel markers provides a backup for visually being able to see it. These are smart channel markers. So we'll know the temperature of the water, the wind speed, the wind direction, the interval and wave height, the amount of time between one wave and another. They have cameras. They're all connected with each other. They're great for immigration, for national security, for just protecting against theft, protecting for dangers, related to navigating in the waters, protecting against other boats coming in your direction, and what we call the displacement of the boat, which is basically, how much does a boat weigh, how fast is it going, and what kind of a wake does it create.
Yeah.
Some of that unnatural wake is important. So we've gotten incredible feedback and support, and people wanting to invest, because that's just the technology of the illuminated channel markers. So what I thought of afterwards, which has never been done ever, is to tokenize the areas of all the bodies of water in the entire world. That's about 75% of the world is water. So you have from rivers to canals to oceans to lakes, whatever you call it. Tokenize those so that when you're traveling or when you go on the app, people can advertise on there. We know that Google and X and some of these companies, 90% of their revenue is advertising. This is a whole new world. And it's three-dimensional. We can advertise under the water because you can see it on the app. So I felt that was revolutionary in terms of what we're doing. And so we're very excited about it, because every time I explain it to somebody, everybody's like, nobody's ever done this, right?
Yeah, so it's a rather abstract concept. I mean, for those who don't understand it and aren't boaters, or maybe don't spend as much time in a boat, and I'm one of them, to be honest with you, there's this process of like, is it like I'm driving down the freeway and suddenly I see a billboard in front of me and it's advertising, whatever it's advertising, air conditioning units, and you obviously have real estate value for marketing, exposure. And that's kind of maybe how I'm imagining it in my mind as I'm traveling around. Suddenly I'm becoming aware of different brands marketing to me according to where I am. So I'm up in the channel around, let's say I'm coming past the Mandarin Oriental on Brickell Quay.
Correct.
Or I'm going down through the Grove and I'm seeing the Four Seasons or the Well. That suddenly there might be an advert that promotes and markets that particular business.
Well, think of it as the ways of the water.
Yep.
I didn't come up with this, so I can't take credit, but somebody the other day said, hey, that's waterways, right? So it's the ways of, an app when you're traveling, and on that app, you can see everything that's around you. The biggest difference is that when you're traveling in a car, you don't have the amount of time that you have on a boat. You have a lot more time on a boat to react.
Yes.
Because there's not, have one car in back of the other.
Yeah, you don't have 1 feet between you and the next car.
Correct. So that's a big plus, right? And then because our app is three-dimensional, I can advertise the buildings by the water and, however many miles in from the water. And then you get to tokenize, different places, like whether it's Puerto Rico or Santo Domingo or Colombia or El Salvador or Cuba, right? You got to be careful with Cuba because of the different laws that you're not benefiting the island or whatever. You basically have the world of the ocean available to you that nobody's ever done this before. And as a result of that, in my view, it's revolutionary. It gets utilized through a utility token, a crypto token called the LuminSea token. It's on the Coinbase platform. under LSEA, right? So the LSEA coin is a utility coin. It means nothing that happens within the LuminSea platform can happen without the coin. That's the currency for the actual.
It's how you
app.
buy and sell within the.
You buy and sell,
tokenization.
service it, the marketing, everything goes through there. So I want to be respectful of what you asked me before, right?
Yeah.
So go back to make sure that we transition.
Yeah, because there's a
into
lot of things I want to cover with you, and also what I want to make sure we get into, understanding your background, is how you see Miami as a city evolving, because your involvement in the city development, and it's, as I was looking, look, there's many people know the headline version of you, right? Both positive and negative. I want to know what part of your story do you actually, I want to know what shaped you the most, what rarely gets talked about, because you as a professional, you as a human being, forget what you do as a business. There's you, John, as a person that you want to project out, and understanding your motivations, your sincerity in terms of why you do what you do, which is clear. It's not money. It's more that there's a creative element to you and a problem-solving nature, and that problem-solving revolves, as you said, around security, protection. You feel this duty to create better security and better systems in place to protect people from some of the horrible things that you've seen. I'm sure, no doubt, you become aware of your own humanity and mortality in the cases that you've dealt with.
For sure. I think the biggest difference, if you read about John Ruiz versus knowing John Ruiz, in my view, is when you know John Ruiz, the people that know me know exactly how I am. Very giving. I try to help. In my opinion, I don't care what money I could have or whether Forbes says it's X, Y, or Z. It doesn't matter to me. I've been super fortunate in terms of, being successful in a lot of the things that I've done. But like I said, not everything I've done has worked. Some of them don't work for a variety of reasons. Miami, more than a lot of other places in the United States, there's a lot of envy in this town. And instead of people seeing what you're doing and saying, great job, they just want to see you down, and they'll say something negative, because instead of spending their time on creating, they spend their time on trying to trash people and talk bad about them. And obviously I'm on the end of, being talked bad about at times, and then other times people say very good things. But I've noticed that the people that say the bad things don't know me. They and they'll say, like, I did a deal with John Ruiz. I don't even know who the person is.
Do you find, the political arena, the politics, and I know there was obviously I was reading up on your drive to create, a new stadium, a football stadium, and there was oppositions that occurred within the city. And again, you are now a resident of the city of Coral Gables, and your drive there was to, develop this, and there was challenges from the commissioners and the main offices. Do you think the opposition that exists, because the way I've perceived it at a business level, is that a lot of individuals like yourself are born creatives. They're born to create. They want to create. They want to build. They just want to make things happen. And once you've sold your company for $1 billion, and a lot of people coming in who are migrating to Miami right now, this is really one of the crux and the key points of this conversation. They are looking to keep building. It's like, what gets me up in the morning? Same things that get you up in the morning. And there's going to be a question that people coming in are going to have, which is, how easy will it be for me to, I've sold the company, got a pot of cash now, let's build some other things. How easy will it for them to be? Because you've had some great success, but there are certain areas of the city that probably have created more challenges. And my question is,
think of it this way. You can probably categorize people into three. Okay. Right? You got the haters that do nothing but hate and criticize the people.
Internet trolls.
That are the doers.
Yes.
Right?
Of course.
So the best example I can give you, because they're pretty close friends of mine, like Jose Mas, George Mas, those guys. Yeah. They're trying to build and do good for the city.
Jose, like I said, I was chatting with him by text last night.
Okay, so Jose's an amazing human being.
Yeah, he is.
Super, super smart. He's like a real guy. He doesn't care about
He's very humble.
He's super humble.
Even
like
when
humble people.
I have to tell you, I knew nothing. I was introduced to him through someone else, and I didn't know who he was, just a guy that lived in a nice neighborhood. And I went over to his house because, I was hiring a general contractor to build my home, the same contractor that he'd used. And I was walking around and I was like, so what is it that you do? And he was like, construction. And I was like, oh, cool. Good. How's that working out for you? Yeah. He was like, it's all right.
So ironically, so Jose, JC, and George, they all went to UM. I went to UM.
Yes.
Around the same time frame. And then there's other similarities. Like Jose lives in a Cesar Molina house.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he's my architect as well. Okay, my house.
I live in a house that's a Cesar Molina house.
Yeah, I know you do, yeah.
So... And plus, obviously Jose's at the University of Miami as the board of directors. I know him from before, so I've known him for a long time. Yeah. They're great human beings, great individuals, treat people well. They're trying to do good for the city, the community, Dade County, you name it. And then you have all these haters that when they were trying to get the soccer stadium up, all they do is hate. So where are you gonna fall? You're gonna be a hater and do nothing so that nothing happens in the city? Or are you gonna fall where the people that put their names on the line, put their money on the line, instead of, supporting the people that are doing so, you're going to support the haters and just jump on the bandwagon? And then you have the people in the middle that are sort of like undecided, that don't go either way, but they're really not moving in that direction. If you tried to use your hands to name the people of this city that really expose themselves to criticism and financial loss and time and effort and their families and what has to happen in order to get things done, how many can you name? How many can you really name?
It's
And you know what happens afterwards? I did the mortgage foreclosure crisis. I represented almost 13,000 people losing their homes in the 2000, 2009, started probably 2006, 2007. It started to really hit hard in 2008 when all the TARP came in. What do you do with people that had the American dream? I saw that in almost 13,000 cases where people, and here's the biggest difference. I had been doing personal injury for a long, long time, and you have people that get injured, and obviously they're going to call you. They're going to want to know how their case is going. Well, I was faced with something that I had never experienced, which is if you were involved in an accident and you broke a leg or whatever the case is, you sort of know what's going to happen. The doctor tells you it's going to take you 4 weeks, whatever.
Yeah, it's quantifiable.
When you're about to lose your house, any notice that the bank sends you, if you don't know the legal process, you think you're going to get kicked out the next day and the sheriff's coming in and kick your kids out with all your furniture. It was a whole different world for me. So I had to calm down. Forget about legal representation. You have to calm down.
You had to become less reactive.
13,000 people. That's when I really learned about big systems. So what did I do? Give you the example. You got one lawyer may cover 15, 20 hearings in a day. What do you think happens with those 15 or 20 people? They want to know what happened, right? Yeah. This lawyer is going from judge to judge to judge. You think the lawyer can stop and tell the judge, hold on a second, I got to call the first client to tell them what's going on, and then that delays you the second client, and then they're calling your office and they're showing up, and what happened? It was crazy. So I had to build a system, which I did. I was the only one that had it, and then I gave my lawyers iPads. And every time the hearing was over, they would press the button, the result would come out, it'd send a text and an email to the person with a recorded video of the process. That calmed down 95% of what I'd never experienced before. I didn't have a system before. I had to get there at 4:30 in the morning, every day, build the system, not me myself, but with my IT people, and then by 7 in the morning, I was going live on TV from 7 to 8, and then I went live from 11 to 12 at night again. And then meeting my clients all day long, nonstop. You know the amount of effort that it takes to do that? And this is what I did, which I think was a very successful thing too. When you go to a doctor or a lawyer and you're out in the waiting room, and I got one question for you. I know you're asking me the question. I just got one question for you. If you're waiting in the waiting room of the doctor's office, and you're there and the doctor's behind, the closed doors, and you don't know how many people came in, what's coming into your mind? Like, when am I going next, right? Yeah. When am I going to be? Because you don't know what the doctor's doing.
Yeah, a doctor's waiting room, you could be there 2 minutes, you could be there 2 hours. You know what?
I changed the dynamic. I created a huge U, and all the lawyers sat in about a 4,000 square foot room that was completely open. And every client sat out there on a chair, and they knew exactly what the lawyers were doing. And that anticipation of when am I going to be called next, we had a numbering system. We were processing while they were there, and they felt like if somebody was taking care of him. Yeah. And when you're in that type of a situation, and people don't know this, like, practicing medicine, practicing law, maybe even as an accountant, whatever, part of your job as a professional, even as a real estate broker or an agent, part of your job is to appease the client, to explain what they're to anticipate, right?
Yeah.
It's part of the problem that the client has in their mind. I would feel no different. I mean, I know a lot about medicine because I've been involved in it with all these injury cases. But if I went to the doctor, I want to know, tell me, doctor, what should I expect? Because I'm not going to know it. The doctor's going to know it. And part of that is a mental component that can't be lost. And I think that most people, if you really think about it, people get upset because they have an expectation that's not met. If you had no expectation and you said to yourself, I'm going to interview John Ruiz, I have no expectation. I heard the guy's an idiot. And I came here and I did nothing good. You said, well, I expected them. But if I came in here, maybe you still think I'm an idiot, but no, I'm just kidding. But if I came in here and I'm talking to you and what I say makes no sense, but somebody had told you, hey, interview John Ruiz because he's going to give you some good information, your expectation was not met.
Yeah.
And then you're going to leave saying like, I don't know why the hell I did that podcast, right?
Well, I guess, look, human beings come with natural prejudice. And one of the things that we do, and again, one of the processes that we deal with as human beings, and part of my conversation that I have every day is people as they're coming into the city and they're moving and they're looking around and they're trying to figure out what neighborhood to live in and why and what it's all about. They come in with a preconceived idea. And I think one of the things I like to do in these podcasts is to break the preconceived ideas of what we see on the media, social media, which is just a train wreck a lot of the time. It's just misinformation at best. Sometimes it's misinformation because there's an ulterior motive. And again, when you start to unwrap it, you start to see why people say the things that they say for their own personal gain. But as people come into the city right now, the conversation revolves around what can I expect? Where is the city going? What's happening? And this is why this conversation kind of is leading, because as someone who's very cognizant about all the moving parts that the city involves, and you mentioned, yeah, there are some haters, there's challenges, there's people who are making stuff happen, like the Mass Brothers, there's other individuals who are really moving forward. I want to look at the present as you see it right now. And as people come in and say, hey, I'm thinking about making the move, do you see a change? Do you see socially circles? You work within a certain sphere. Are you seeing a change in the crowd of people moving in? And are you seeing any change with psychology that comes with that crowd?
Yeah, so look, I'm going to divide that into two.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah,
sorry about that.
So, no, it's okay. But I think when people are coming into the city, just like anything else in life, right? You're going into a new situation. You don't know who's who. And at the end of the day, you have to have honesty and integrity in anything that you do. Because if I was a real estate broker, it would do me no good, ultimately in the long term, to oversell a house, right, to a person that comes down here and sell it for $500,000 or $1 million more, or 2 or 3 or whatever the number is.
Short term.
Because they're going to be stuck. It's like going to a car dealer and they oversell the price of the car, and then when you're going to go trade in the car, they tell you, hey, you're upside down. That doesn't work.
Yeah, that's not relationship building. That's short-term gain for long-term loss.
But that happens a lot because there's people short-term memory. Yeah. I want to make money now, and I don't care what happens.
Small-minded people do small-minded things.
So, but what I do think, because I've lived in Miami my entire life, and I've seen the transition between not just the city of Miami, but Coral Gables and Little Haiti and Homestead and places like that.
This is what part of my questioning is like. I've got so many questions that are coming in, and they're bounced all over my questionnaire here because we're moving all over. But again, which areas are developing and where you see the
so
move?
Look, I think that number one, obviously COVID changed everybody's thinking in life altogether.
Completely.
And I will tell you, when I bought my house, I put the contract in 2-3 weeks before COVID struck. And I was like, oh my God, here's a very large purchase that I just made, and now it's COVID, and these houses are going to plummet in prices, and this is going to
couldn't have been more wrong, could you?
Right?
Crazy.
But that's what you think.
Yeah.
Just like when I did mortgage foreclosure defense cases, the properties were dirt cheap.
Yeah.
You could buy any property, but did I want to buy properties? No, because I was getting stung by the same thing that everybody got stung. I was doing condo conversions in Pensacola, Florida. So there's a saying which is you can't catch a falling knife.
Yeah.
Right?
I love that. It's an economic saying. Don't try and catch a falling knife.
Right.
You'll lose your fingers.
But you don't know when the knife is going to stop falling and it turns around and things happen, right? Yeah. So in my view, I think that there's no doubt in my mind, and maybe because I'm sort of boat driven and that's my passion, you cannot reproduce houses on the water. That's just my...
I'm smiling for a reason here because there's an interesting
you cannot
dialogue.
reproduce that. I don't know, and you probably do know because you're in the business. Gables Estates, maybe about 8-9 months ago, was determined to be the most expensive neighborhood
I
in the
know
country.
Gables Estates very well. Very well.
Again, let's go back. Pre-COVID, 2-3 weeks, I put an offer on the house that I now live in. I'm saying to myself, oh my God, I'm like, what did I do? Like, I didn't know that was happening, but what a situation. But I said to myself, you know what? Luckily I can do it, and I'll be here 4 or 5 years. I know how to conduct business. I'll make money, and maybe 4 or 5 years from now I'll sell it, and then maybe I have to lose $6-7 million. That's what I had in my head.
Yeah.
I was completely wrong, obviously. Beneficially to me that I was completely wrong, but I think that somebody who's coming here from whether it's California that has some tax laws and issues, or
New York or Washington.
Well, and then California we had all the fires,
yes.
And then New York, whether it's because of the COVID issue or because
politics,
of the new mayor or whatever. You may or may not know this. I don't really like politics.
I stay out of it. Personally, I sell real estate. I'm not going to I'm not going to get into political opinions, but the effects or the decisions that other people make because of their own personal feelings have resulted in large migrations. Yes. And today, I will tell you, and this is an interesting thing, John, people ask me, how's the market? And I tell them, to me right now, it's like COVID on steroids. Yeah. We doubled our volume from what we did last year, and last year was our best year yet. I have never seen or received so many phone calls at a very high level. I'm talking about all these calls are $15 million and up buyers.
Yes.
I've never seen so many occur as I have in the last 30 days. And we just did a video. This will probably shock you. In 2021, through the Tri-County area, we had 205 sales over $15 million, right? Over 1.5 over 15 million, right? And of course, there was a few, big ones, 40s, 50s and stuff, but over 15 was like a benchmark for luxury. It dropped a little bit through 22, 23. 24, 25, it increased and ramped up again. Last year was at 170, so it wasn't far off where we were at pandemic numbers. This year, in the first 30 days of this year, we have 70 closed and pending deals at $15 million or above. So if you just extrapolate the line, and I know that you're very much a numbers guy, data-driven, you just do the math. It makes probability of exceeding that 210 number not just extremely likely, but the delta of which we're going to be above it is so significant it might even become double, which tells me as a broker one thing, that ultra wealthy migration is on the move.
I mean, you got to listen to Ken Griffin, who says, that he's moved his company here and they're all moving down here and they see, they see what's going on. I mean, look, there's also a significant number of buildings going up in the Brickell area, and now things are moving down north.
Yep.
But also you got to think about it. Miami's a great city, and the surroundings around Dade County. There's great weather.
Yes.
There's beaches, boating. There's a lot to do.
Yeah.
When is the last time that you thought to yourself, I can't go out because of the weather? It's very limited number of times.
Even today, where it's one of the coldest days of the year, you can still, put on a jacket and take the dog for a walk, and it's pleasant.
And there's a lot to do here. And then, I'm somewhat involved in the major food group.
Yeah.
They came down from New York and opened up a bunch of restaurants here. And
very
it's like
successful.
They're popping up everywhere.
Yeah.
David Grutman's done a great job.
Phenomenal operator.
Jeff from MSG's done a great job. You got all these famous restaurants coming down here. I mean, this is becoming the epicenter of the world, pretty much. And
this really begs into my question that I had for you in the present is the market and real estate insights, which is, again, you're on the ground and you know these operators, so you know what they're doing and what they're going to do next. And my question was, you're heavily invested in Miami real estate, particularly in the ultra luxury properties. what do you see as the biggest structural forces shaping our market over the next 5 to 10 years? What's shaping it?
I think that you have so many homes, for example, in Gables Estates, in Cocoa Plum, in Journey's End, in Old Cutler Bay,
Yep.
and then Hammock Lakes. And there's still a lot of homes that are older homes that are going to be purchased, knocked down, and they're going to be built from scratch. And that's just going to keep pumping the values up because people want to live in those areas. Now, we're going to have a couple of issues. You know, traffic's getting way worse.
Yep.
The schools are a problem to get the kids into.
Yep.
But that's where people want to be. They want to come down here. And the reality is, if we go back to just weather, you know, how fantastic. Again, I'm a boater, you know, to be able to leave your house and go to your backyard and get into your boat and go somewhere on your boat, which could be the Bahamas, it could be the Keys, it could be, you know, West Palm Beach, whatever.
Yeah.
That's priceless, right? And that's really what people are starting to learn. You know, we own Cigarette Racing as our family, so we know what people are motivated. And a lot of people that are up north, they come down here, they leave their boats here. So we've seen a huge increase in the sale of boats. We've seen a huge increase in sort of vendors around the boating industry. Has become a much more profitable business for different people, whether you're selling life vests or you're selling coolers or you're selling, you know, radios or whatever you're doing. It doesn't matter what you're doing around the marine industry. It has become a huge, especially after COVID. That people realized that when they were locked in their homes, they could still go out in the middle of the ocean, especially in the state of Florida.
So desire for waterfront, and you said it earlier on in the conversation, you were like, you said waterfront houses. And I kind of had a feeling that our conversation would head in that direction. I live in Ponce Davis.
Okay.
I bought during my house during the pandemic, actually bought my shell of my home from Alex at Mocha.
And I dear friend.
Yeah, and Alex, and Alex's daughter actually is friends with my daughter. And it's weird, like, you know, degrees of separation. But I remember buying that, and I met with Cesar Molina, and I wanted him to design my house. And then I saw Alex was building a home, and I was like, "Who's the architect?" He went, "Cesar Molina." And I was like, so I remember doing the deal with him during the pandemic.
I talked to Alex 5 times a day.
Yeah, he's great. He's a great guy. And I remember buying the shell and building, and at the time, you know, that was being built. Now in my neighborhood in Ponce Davis, and as I've gone through, and we actually have a list, we made a list because we thought it would be helpful of all the new build houses. They're in Pinecrest, Ponce Davis, Coral Gables, Coconut Grove. And what's interesting is that the ultra luxury buyers, the deals, as you know, Alex is building a number of houses in Gables Estates.
Yes.
The ultra luxury buyers are coming in. They're trying to grab it a little bit before it's completely finished, because they're the type of people that want the custom car. They don't want to buy and go in the showroom and buy it. Right. They want to be able to pick everything out: the color, the spec, the interior, the lot.
But that's what the builder doesn't want, because it's
that's
very
what the builder typically doesn't want. But I think to get that high level requirement, and I remember selling a house on Lucadendra on Arvida, and I've just. Your neighborhood, Coral Gables, right? That's your home.
Yes.
In your opinion, and you know the beach, you know Coral Gables, why to you is Gables Estates, why does it represent the place where you live? Why does it represent the top of the mountain?
It's very safe. So the security is great. Dr. Tano, who runs the association, does a phenomenal job. You know, you have boats patrolling the waterways, and then you're smack in the center of the county, pretty much, right? Mm-hmm. So if you want to go to Kendall, you're much closer than if you're at the beach. If you want to go north, you jump on I-95, so you're there. So it's very centrally located, in my view. So it's peaceful. You know, when you go to the beach, and if you live in the beach, everybody's going to the beach or come from the beach on the weekends and even during the week, because there's a lot going on in the beach.
Yeah.
You don't have sort of that traffic in the Gables Estates area, right? Then the lots are very large in Gables Estates.
Yes.
Luckily, you know, knock on wood, unfortunately, I like big lots because I like to be able to go outside. I lived in an apartment.
We're talking about an acre. I mean, there's a lot of acre lots.
Yeah.
That is.
My house is on almost 2.5 acres.
Yeah, yours is the exception, not the rule. But,
right, but big picture, you know, I lived in an apartment probably 8-9 years ago, and I couldn't be there for more than 3 months. I need to be able to walk outside of my house. I like to have garages. I'm a car guy.
Yeah.
So I like all that stuff. So to me, you know, whether you're in Cocoa Plum or Gables Estates or Old Cutler Bay or Journey's End, you know, as you go down the line, and, you know, Snapper Creek or some of my kids live, which is where Jose lives.
Yes.
I lived there before I moved out, and I'm divorced from my ex-wife. Obviously, she's great people. I got along with her super well. And I have 3 kids. My 3 kids are 31, 29, and 26. Snapper Creek is an amazing neighborhood.
It's probably got the most beautiful trees, I think, of any neighborhood or gated community.
It's probably the best bang for the buck.
It is right now. You know, it's so I don't want to get too much into the real estate conversation because I have this all the time. But I live in Ponce Davis, you live in Gables Estates, and if people come in, I take them down, Main Highway, get to Cocoa Plum Circle, take them inside Cocoa Plum, take them to Old Cutler, take them into Gables Estates, take them into Ponce Davis, take them to Hammock Lakes, which I love.
Yes.
I mean, Caesar's building a beautiful house now in Hammock Lakes, and also I know that Alex had his house there as well, which he finished and sold. These are, in my mind, the best neighborhoods for the ultra wealthy with family in mind, with kids in mind.
I agree with you. And
I choose it over the beach. I like the beach. I've got clients who buy in Venetian and Sunset Islands, but what I find with this area is that it's systematically and consistently beautiful. There's some older homes here and there.
You also have a city government that's used to building with certain regulations, as opposed to when Hurricane Andrew struck that people had to change. They've had this system all along.
Yeah.
And then some people like him, some people don't. But I think Vince Lagos has done a great job. He's very passionate about his job. I know him personally. He's a good guy. And so I think that, when you're looking at the city government, the city police is great. Chief Hudak is an amazing. Super safe. He's great. Hudak is great. Then you have the University of Miami. You have the hospitals and the hospital system. And I know Dr. Lee Kaplan from the orthopedic side of it. Just spectacular people. And Joy Chevarria, that's running the university now, is just super high level, smart guy, great guy. These are people that have passion to make sure that things are done right. You bring in a coach like Mario Cristobal, and I don't care what anybody says, you get that team to the national championship, and it creates more economy for the city.
It nearly made it in. I mean, it was close. And again,
can you imagine the amount of business that the city gets and people moving here and the attraction? I mean, sports draws people to the cities and places too. And then you have the Masters with the soccer team, and I believe that the stadium opens up soon now. So you got a lot of stuff going on.
With all these things happening, with great wealth moving in, we've had, obviously, in the last 30 days, we've had press come out. We had Larry Page buy his place in Coconut Grove. That was a $173 million purchase. There was a trade down the street that Alex was involved in for $100 million. We obviously, a couple of years ago, Ken Griffin made his play. The other head of Google Search, he's shopping around. Do you think that this buy-up of ultra-luxury real estate at the very, very high end, the billionaire buyers, do you think that is signaling to the rest of the market the direction that we're going? Is it a playbook for how other people should then start to read the market? Or is it just a completely different group of people who are above the cloud line that live and die and operate by a completely different set of rules?
So look, obviously the tax benefits that we have in Florida are substantial, and therefore that's a big driver when you talk about people that are very wealthy. But I think ultimately the weather, I think, plays a huge part of that. It really
But do you think the wealth migration, and the question is really this, do you think the wealth migration is at that level positively reinforces the lower level 5 to 10 range, 3 to 6 range, or do you think it has no real impact at all?
So I think it may push some buyers out of being able to buy, because not a lot of people can buy a $3 to $5 million home. We talk about $3 to $5 million now.
I know that's probably almost sounds obnoxious, doesn't it? I mean, a 3 to 5 is kind of what we call in these markets. 2 is like land.
Yeah.
3 is decent home
But I
entry
think
level.
we're pricing out to an extent the young professionals, that just graduated from whether it's law school or medical school or whatever, because I don't care how you slice it. If you're making, $250,000, which is a damn good salary, you can't afford a $3 or $4 million house.
No.
This doesn't happen.
No.
The numbers are not there. So I think ultimately you have, a place like, Coco Plum, which you probably can't find a house in Coco Plum for less than $5 million.
$5 is minimum.
Right, minimum. If you find it, you got to still gut it.
It's still like needs a
and then you have
needs a redo.
right next to it is Gables Estates. You can't touch anything there for less than 25.
Gables Estates right now, the cheapest deal that happened was a land trade that was just happened at 50. It's happening right now, which is 15.
So what do you do? So your question is, are the billionaires getting the 3 to 5 market more stable?
Are they helping bring in wealthier buyers?
Well, I think wealthier buyers. I don't know that the wealthier buyer, in my view, is the best thing in the world because they're not young professionals.
Yeah.
You want to have, like in anything in the world, whether it's a baseball team or a basketball team, you want to have the people that are established, but you need the new blood.
You need feeding in.
You need. I've been a lawyer for 30-something years. You need the young lawyers to take over what I do. I'm about to retire from the law practice. But
with those people who are now moving in, and if we're going to maybe make the assumption that those younger professionals do want to come into Miami for the lifestyle, as you mentioned, weather's great, lifestyle's great, it's safe. It's all the things that human beings need. Maslow's pyramid of human need at the base. What areas do you see growing in Miami that we need to focus on? My question actually
I think Homestead. I think Homestead is a place where you have, the larger roads, the newer development, the newer infrastructure, which I think becomes important.
You see us playing development areas as we move south. So Palmetto Bay, Homestead,
yes.
Cutler Bay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot going on. I know a lot of people that are going in that direction. I was there quite some time back when I was doing all the stuff with sports, and they have great restaurants there. They have great malls.
We're seeing a huge number of transactions in the 1 to 2 range and 2 to 3 range in Palmetto Bay at a level that we've never seen before. And the dollar per square foot is systematically now starting to move.
We have to remember also that life changed after COVID, and that means that a lot of people work from home.
Yeah.
You can conduct business now through Zoom and, all these different platforms and technology that let you do so many things that you couldn't do before. So now, if you really think about it, I have like 3 offices within my house. I move around within them. So I go to my office, but I go to my office 2-3 times a week, and I'm not there all day long. So a lot happens in my house. So the thinking is, then why am I going to go and pay $100,000 a month in rent to have an office when I can buy a property and have it within my house and just use Zoom or something else, and then all of a sudden I get a better house. So I think a lot of that may work out well. And I think that when you have young professionals, or maybe even some of the older ones, because I know this is happening, they have people working remotely now. And as long as you can rely on those people working remotely, which you can't rely on all of them to do that, that changes the dynamics of the world of real estate when we're talking about residential properties. And I also think it changes the dynamics of, the commercial spaces, where all these big companies are now understanding they don't have to spend all that money to have people there, because they transition in and out, and there's just a lot. Yeah, there's been a humongous change since COVID.
I'm following the dots of the conversation. Just gave me I don't say an aha moment, but I joined the dots between you having a home office and being able to say, okay, I don't need to go into an office. I can work from home because my estate is big enough that I can do that. The rise of the mega estates, these big sales that we're seeing, the ultra luxury buyers recognizing land is the one thing that we can't build any more of.
Correct.
Waterfront is a very finite supply. Yes. As you've actually said, I think we did a study of the peninsula front properties that run all the way from Coconut Grove all the way down south, and I think it was something like 42. It was a very limited number of homes. And what we've seen with these big sales right now is this very definitive move for large estates. Larry Page's estates is like 4.5 acres. The other sale that happened with Alex, it was a very large plot. And many people thought, well, maybe you would chop that up and you'd make that into multiple homes. But no, they're getting combined because you're creating your own ecosystem.
Because remember that a lot of the larger estates, and I know I do it in my house, whenever I have an event, I have it in my house, and it's good because you're bringing in people into a section of my house, because I don't bring them into the main house, but I have a pavilion, and you do that. Yeah. And then because I'm on the water, we sell boats. I have the illuminated channel markers. I have the illuminated channel markers behind my house lighting up. Yeah. It works for me. It's got to work for other businesses as well. So the way that I view my property is I have different pods within my property, and they all have a different purpose. And when people come in and they see where you live and how you live in terms of, the reality of you being a human being, and bringing them coffee and they eat in your house, whatever, it changes the ability to make a deal. I think my house, for me at least, has worked out in terms of being able to do that, because, I get people coming from all over the world. Yeah. Whether it's Dubai or Saudi Arabia or wherever, I get
very interesting range. I actually had, and I know I'm cognizant of time here because I have so many questions, but I'm going to just cherry pick from my list of things. With the home that you have, I had a question for you, which is, if Miami real estate was wiped clean tomorrow, this is going into the future now, if it was wiped clean tomorrow and you had to start all over again, no legacy homes, no emotional attachment, where would you deploy your first $100 million and why?
It's a good question. I would say in technology, for sure, because the real way to multiply your money is through technology, because even though we have a lot of technology already, there's just so much more to come. And it's really the multiplicity of money, right? So from my core of what I did, like with MSP, it really had to do with the technology to find where healthcare providers were paying for claims that they did not owe legally, and reverting back and recovering those monies. It's crazy to fathom this, but our healthcare system still to this day is a complete dire mess. Not in the delivery of services, because we do have great doctors and great tools, but in the way that the system exists to bill for that, and who pays for it, and when is it that they pay, and when is it that people get approved for certain things. That's a total mess. And we're still, and I've been working on a lot of this stuff because, probably 10 years ago, I realized that why is it that you go to have, you can have an MRI of your shoulder, right? And depending on who the radiologist is that reads your MRI, they may come up with a grade 1 tear or a grade 2 tear. Well, what the hell's a grade 1 or grade 2? There's nothing defined. So I've always thought to get the top 25 radiologists in the world and have them read, scans over and over and over and over again, and then have the AI figure that out, because there's a lot of medical mistakes that are made. In the United States, about 800,000 people die a year just because of medical errors. And there's so much that can be done in the world of technology that if I had to start from scratch and deploy the first 100 million, that's where I would be for sure. Okay. For sure.
Interesting. Now, the next question, which is kind of like deployment of capital again, thinking about what Miami is going to look like in 5 years, and thinking what the city will be like. If you were again starting all over again, similar question, but this time you're deploying 500 million, but it's only in real estate. Where would you deploy that? Where would you buy? What areas did you say, okay, this is where I'm going to buy more homes?
Water. You got to be on the water. That's the exclusivity that we have here in Florida, especially in Coral Gables. You can't replicate that. There's just so many, there's just a certain number of houses.
So waterfront homes.
100%.
And which neighborhoods?
You can never go wrong if you're on the water. Yeah. It's very difficult to be on the water in one of these neighborhoods and make a mistake. So if you're in Coco Plum, you're in Gables Estates, you're in Journey's End.
So those mainland south gated communities. Yes. Now, there's always going to be, we talked about haters out there. There's going to be internet trolls who are going to come on and they're going to be like, Miami's going to be underwater in 10 years time, 15 years time. I mean, I've had this dialogue and people comment on below my podcast all the time on this stuff. What is your comment to those haters out there who seem to be convinced that the sky is falling and that we're all sinking?
The first thing I'd say, you got flood insurance just in case it happens. But listen, you know how many things get put out on the internet and the likes, and maybe in 300 years Miami will be underwater, but I don't see that happening. The tide comes up and down and all around. And there's just so many things that we don't know about nature. The scary thing is that I tell people, because we're in the business of really the ocean and the bodies of water. You know that we know less than 10% of the species in the ocean?
Yeah.
So when they start talking about all these different things, we don't even know about the ocean, much less can we figure that out. So again, I think that goes without saying that, people are just going to make comments. But if I'm deploying $500 million, I'm deploying anything like that in real estate only, I would say water. I would say Gables Estates is number one. Old Cutler Bay, I would say, is probably number two, because Journey's End has a lot of, dry lots. One of those two places, it's hard to make a mistake.
And then if you don't want that open water, then Snapper, Hammock Oaks, Hammock Lake.
Snapper is interesting. I bought my property in Snapper Creek probably in 2006. And I really thought it was going to go up more. It's not gone up the way that I would have anticipated it, which is super odd to me.
I have a theory on that. Do you want to hear my theory?
I'm going to tell you my theory, because
I want to hear your theory
in your head already. And I don't want to jade mine with your theory.
Yeah,
my theory is that it's the furthest south on the west side of Old Cutler Road, and there's a lot of traffic to get to there. Is that your thought process?
It's about getting your kids to school in the morning, but more importantly, then being able to have, especially when people move in, and I see this all the time, they like to be anchored to a village, a town, or somewhere that allows them to build social connections. Right. And the further you are from that, that's why Pinecrest is a much softer dollar per square foot than Coral Gables, and why Coconut Grove is even more. And that's why the Moorings and Camp Biscayne and Devon Court in the Grove are such a premium, because of that immediate access to community, which, if you don't know anybody, it's super important.
I will tell you, I'm still going to say that Snapper Creek is the best bang for the buck.
I think it's going to change.
It's taken longer than what I anticipated, but my kids live in Snapper Creek.
Yeah.
And that house I built back in 2010, I think.
Yeah.
And it probably cost me somewhere around $8-9 million to build, total in between the lot and the thing. It's probably worth 25 now or so. Yeah. So the multiplicity of where it's gone up is unlike, Gables Estates has gone up.
Gables Estates went.
But I am telling you that Snapper Creek is a sleeper.
Yeah.
Snapper Creek eventually is going to skyrocket, because when people start buying the older homes and building new homes, I think most lots there are like an acre and a half.
Yeah, they're great lots, and they're beautiful, and the neighborhood feels.
You don't have no-seams, by the way.
Yes,
you have in some other places.
That's another point.
No-seams in a bunch of different places. So that's my view. But again, look, I think Coral Gables is booming. Miami's booming. The Miami River is booming. Yeah. We got a lot of really good things going on in South Dade, and I think again, because there's so much money coming in, it provides inspiration to those that are sort of on the fence. Am I going to, invest or not invest, and what am I going to build? But I still think we need to go back, David, because I think it's important to send out a message we got to stop hating. Because when you hate so much, you dissuade people that want to do stuff.
Yeah.
You got to back up people that are doing things to make the city better, right? Why are you doing that? Why are you always hating on these politicians, and where did you get the money, and where did you do this? Let the system sort that out. And until we don't get away from that, it's just sad. Yeah. You probably read it, but I've gone through a lot of that stuff. I
have. And I think that one of the things that, I think it's healthy to have intellectual curiosity, and I think it's good to question things. That's okay. I think it's also important to recognize that people don't like change. Change is a certainty. Yep. We're undergoing massive change as a city moving forward. I'm very optimistic for it. And I think one of the things that I'm seeing is those people that I'm working with who are coming in, and this is where I like to connect the dots. I love to bring in those great professionals, and I have the pleasure, the luxury of being able to meet individuals like yourself with huge wealth who can make things happen. And there are people coming in from other cities who also want to make things happen. They want to create. They're curious people with a creative nature. And I think that the more that we have of that, the better the city will be. Because
I will tell you that I think that there's a couple things that really need to happen. Coral Gables is a great city, but the infrastructure is very antiquated. Even in Gables Estates, we lose power a bunch of times. The internet goes down. You got to fix that.
You need to invest in the hardware.
In the infrastructure. Blockchain is here to stay. The world of technology, where you have the ability to have transparency of everything that's going on, from whether it's an accounting side of the world is changing, and it's changing very quickly. And it's changing quickly because technology is taking over as it pertains to, what we do and how we do it. I went to Italy in the summer of 2024, and you see all these pyramids and everything. They were getting all these gigantic rocks and how they levered them to get them to where they were going to be. We have so much technology now that can be done, very, very quickly. So that changes big time. And again, that's why one of the things that makes us as a company proud of LuminSea. We're revolutionizing what's going on in the ocean and how you can track and trace boats and the safety behind it and the ability to market that world, which, we as human beings, I think my numbers are correct, we're about 75% water ourselves. Like a disc is that's made out of water. So we are, by our very nature, attracted to water. That's why I say, in my view, investment-wise in real estate, water. Somewhere around the water. You got to be close to the water at some point in time, because that's what's going to continue to blow up.
Fascinating finish to the podcast. I want to conclude this. This has actually been a really, I could talk, there's a lot more I could talk about. I'm conscious that time would go on and we'd be well outside of our hour. It's been a pleasure to have this conversation with you. I'm sure there's a lot more questions, and maybe we can have you back again at some point to talk about those. I'm fascinated to see human beings. I was listening to a podcast yesterday where the conversation is about either being pushed forward or pulled forward. And pushed is your motivation, sometimes by fear or pain or just by the drive to make money. Pulled forward is almost vocational, where you're just literally it's a gravitational pull for change. And I'm very hopeful that Miami is a city that's being pulled forward by inspiration, by creativity, by a system that is as flawed as all systems are. It has a better formula than many other cities. Again, whether that's political, social, economic, climate, I think we have the better formula right now than any city in the US. And I think that's why everyone's coming here. And this is my chance to speak to legitimate people who are not shackled by the limitations of paying for their rent or they're seeing bigger pictures. And I think this is a great shining example that hopefully we'll have more individuals like yourself on the podcast who are, I know you hate to say it, but billionaires to stamp you in a certain way, who have the capacity to change the city for the better. Yep. John, thank you so much for doing this. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Better Decisions podcast. Stay tuned for another episode coming soon.